Hi, I'm Kalua Lauber, and I will be actually sharing my pedagogy for. Hi, I'm Kalua Lauber, and I will be talking about my group project with the novel Pride by Ibi Zoboi. And if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. I teach AP Lang in rhetoric and in composition. And so my take would be a little different from literary work. I would basically actually start off by introducing the novel and giving the students objectives. The first objective would be participants will be able to use depth and complexity icons to collaborate on a rhetorical analysis of the novel. Research plan, because we would be doing research and conducting research on the ideologies of the novel and some of the things that are going on in the novel. Formulate a research plan to identify the roots of gentrification, racial inequity, and displacement. And then finally, share insights that go beyond the surface. My students do a lot of group pair share, collaborative work, discussion, Socratic seminars, and philosophical chairs, as I discuss in my essay. So, my defensible thesis statement for this is written in the AP Lang style. While independent reading is important for students to gain reading resilience, today's students are accustomed to quick access and need prompting, which encourages critical thinking skills. The most successful skills are learned by interaction and discussion. Students learn by interacting with the text and collaborative work. My motifs, as I stated earlier, are gentrification, represented by the Darcy mini mansion versus the Benitez apartment, and economic disparity with food as a symbol of identity and crisis. As a native of Louisiana, I definitely can relate to this novel on many levels, particularly the food and culture. So I'm giving you the brief block of the main depth and complexity icons that I would be using. I'm going to describe the one that I use the most for my students so that they can actually participate and learn from that. So first is the assignment, how I'm going to set it up with the students is that they analyze a rhetorical situation, the speaker, audience, purpose, and context. That's the rhetorical situation is super important for students to be able to just actually give that background information. Identify rhetorical appeals, ethos, pathos, and logos. And it's not the rhetorical appeals of the characters themselves, it's the rhetorical appeals that the author uses that basically where she's actually talking about the demographics. Students would actually look for those demographics. That would be logos. Students would be looking at the disparities between the groups who come in and take over, and that would be a little bit of ethos, but also pathos, because a lot of people would be displaced. Examine tone, diction, and syntax. That's just how she writes. One of the things that I noted that is that she intersperses poetry, which I notice a lot of minority authors do that. The author of The Poet X also does that in her writing. It is actually unique for Northeastern novels, particularly in New York. And in those communities, spoken word and poetry slams are very popular. So I would have them looking at that and how it resonates with them. My students are also writing self poems as they go along, so that would be great for them to interact with that kind of writing. Evaluate the argument about race, class, and cultural displacement. That is going to require actually research. So this depth and complexity icon is one that I find just important because students often miss the details of writing. So these are prompts or questions, and I would allow the students to use the questions to direct what they want to ask, not that I would tell them to ask specific questions, but open-ended ones. What are the characteristics or attributes of the Bushwick neighborhood or of Zuri or Zuri's family or a family like hers, a mixed race family? What is the difference between that and a full African American family? describe how blank one part or factor affects another part or factor. How do the people who move in, who are basically invading somebody else's territory, how do they feel as an outsider? Because we can look at that side as well, not just, oh, we are so traumatized by all of this change and these people coming in and money with money, but also how do the people who are coming in and having to clean up things and spend all of that money are feeling as well. It'll be interesting to do a little research on that. So these questions are what go along with the icons. So we looked at the icons a second ago, and each one of them come with a set of prompts that really help the students to critically think. I don't have to tell them what to ask. They look at those questions and they try to formulate it to something that is interesting to them. Okay. So the first part of the assignment that I would give is the topics, as I've already discussed and unpacked a little bit. But with students, it takes a little longer than just explaining, hey, we're going to use these icons. So we would read an excerpt from Pride and Prejudice and create a T-chart that points out the similarities and differences with Pride. So that would be a one part of the assignment when we start. Students would look at that excerpt and then, look at the differences. Why is it that this author chose this? She's so intrinsically different from this homogenous society in England, where even the people who seem poor actually look like they're doing pretty well. So I would show clips from my favorite I'm not Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice feature with Colin Firth. But I think that students would actually also get something out of reading a section and then reading a section in the novel Pride to get a general overview of that. Again, now after they've done that and made that selection, then they would pick topics that they want to focus their research on. Gentrification, racial inequities, displacement from cultural roots, and then wealth and influence within a minority group. It is a whole different thing when it's like Black people with money as opposed to white people, that a lot of people in minorities think that maybe everybody has money or at least they have privilege. That's not always the case, obviously, and prejudicial. But I would explain that to students as well, because that's how we meander into the topic. Kids will, state what they think and what they've heard. And so I would actually do some clarifications and have them to actually look up this kind of information. Do they react differently? Are they responding differently? Or are they still under the same kind of problems with racial inequities, even though they do have money? The first thing that we need to do is get ourselves into the argument point of view. Again, this is language and composition. We do a lot of debate. So the first thing I would do is kind of like a discussion board. I do that on Schoology. Write an argument rant, just expressing your opinions about the topic for or against either side. So they would choose all of the topics and then just write how you feel about it. What do you know about gentrification? Do you think it's okay that people come in and take over a neighborhood? Have you ever experienced racial inequity or seen it, or your friends? And so they would just write their feelings. That's it. They write appropriately, school appropriate, but they do get a chance to express their feelings. And then usually I'll have students express their feelings for themselves, and then they have to respond to two or three other classmates, not on the extensive scale that we do. They would just actually literally be giving their opinion. It's like a discussion, but the discussion is online. And then after they finish doing that, we go over it and we talk about some main points or anything that somebody said that struck a chord. And this is just to get their juices going. I think I clicked, yeah, I double clicked, sorry. So then after we do that, we discuss our argument ideas with a table. My class is a collaborative setting. I have students in groups of four. Some of them are in three, but no less than three people per table. Mostly it's four though. And then I have them discuss what their thoughts are about these topics. After they discuss for a while, and this may be a 2 to 3 day activity because we're discussing, we're writing, we're discussing, we're writing. So I would say, I'm going to say 2 days. Then they reach a consensus on the topic that is most feasible to support with research. Hey, I think I could find a lot of stuff on gentrification. Let's do that one. No, man, look at what happened to this guy in Minneapolis. Look at what happened to Trayvon Martin. I mean, we have a lot of things about racial inequity we could actually look into. So depending on what the discussion is, let them discuss, let them figure out what they want to do. After they do that, they reach that consensus on the topic. Which one is, they're both good. Which one is better? Support with research and evidence and select it as your working argument because we're leading toward an argument. Even though it's literature, AP Lang and composition is strictly nonfiction. So we would actually be pulling from the nonfiction to justify the fact that we're reading a cool coming of age novel. So after we've come to a general consensus, again, we're going to turn and talk about the topic that your group has chosen. They have had to choose it. I know some people might not like the topic. They may change tables. However, they have to choose one topic that they're going to research. Each person should chime in their own thoughts. We're not going to have somebody sitting like Johnny out, left out. I'll walk around to join and share my opinion. So I'll walk around and listen to what they have to say. And, oh, okay, you're on the right track. That's really good. If you aren't familiar with the topic, you can use that as fuel to research your group research online. So let's say you're at a table and they're talking about something you've never had experience with. My classroom is not monochromatic. I may have a Caucasian kid in there or an Asian kid, and they're like, all right, I've never had this experience. Okay, so now you're going to be a researcher. You're going to look at it and you're going to come from a perspective of someone who's tabula rosa. You don't know. So, and students can help them and they can form their own opinions based upon that. And it usually works out pretty well because kids are pretty active when they really don't know something, especially in AP classes. They want to know just what their peers know. And then here's another gifted icon, multiple perspectives. It speaks for itself. Like, what is your perspective? This is my perspective. This is your perspective. This is her perspective. Even I may actually integrate the table. So we have kids for a table and talk to the other one. So they talk across the tables about their topic, specifically if it's the same, and then determinately if it is different. Oh, we chose this. Why did y'all choose that? It's a whole discussion and some journaling at the end. Discuss what you know about your group's chosen topic, and then divide your research into four categories. Now, this is a bite off of a literary circle. Instead, we're going to be reporters. The main reporter is the person who's going to be talking out to the group and explaining what everyone thinks. It's usually the verbose of the group, the person that likes to talk, the person that wants to be the showboat. The illustrator is always my artist kids. They like to actually draw a picture. And then the organizer is putting it all together. What did you get? What did you get? Okay, let me put that together. Send it to me. Let me clip it on and copy and paste and whatever they have to do. And the connector is someone who makes a connection with the real world, not just the world of the novel, but the actual real world. They would find different things that they can discuss when they're about to do their research and in their presentations. Begin to research using the icon prompts. So each person in the group, usually it's like one person, but sometimes two people both like kind of bite off of each other and help each other with their research. They would use the icon prompts, the questions that go along with the prompt to help with their research, not just asking one question and then finding multiple sources that they're actually going to write down. And this is another way I also use to teach students MLA format and teach them how to organize their works cited page, as well as pulling information that can help support their commentary with evidence. Okay, so the research methodology, I would just go over this very quickly with the class. We already have our topic choice. We've done that data collection with icon best suits your topic. I don't relegate the kids to one topic or one not I'm sorry, with one topic I do to one icon. They can use more than one. You can actually find the ethical issue along with an issue that is a trend or a pattern. And so they can use multiple ones. Whenever they find something that's different, they will have to label it on the chart paper that I will give them when they get to the culminating part of this activity. Um, they're just researching, I've already said that, analysis method. They're going to write down their findings. They're going to talk about it. Do you think this works? Do you think that's going to make sense? Do you think that we should use this? And then as they're talking to each other, I'm just observing. And so I can step in if they ask me a question, but 90% of the time I let students kind of flesh it out themselves. There's always someone who comes out that's a natural leader, and there's always someone who's a support to that natural leader. So now here comes the big deal after they've done their research and everything. I've made a meal out of this book. And by the way, in my writing, I state that this is like something that we would do each week. This is not something that, oh, we just do this big culminating thing. Each week, we would actually choose a section, do a little research on it, and then do a little presentation. The big presentation will be a culmination of all the things we've done. So most of it is turn and talk, facilitating, working on it, and building up to this chart paper that is something that we have culminated to over a couple of weeks. First thing, kids love to name their teams, so I would have them name their teams. And then on their team paper, they need to actually represent the icons. Students can draw it or they can print it out and paste it on there. It doesn't matter to me. Use your icon next to your research and findings. Each team member should contribute a finding. I need to know that everybody has actually contributed to this work. It's not just one kid doing everything. And then I just recommend our library as a source and our library database. Copy your citations on a separate document that goes back to teaching MLA format, teaching kids how to actually get ready and prepared to go to college, and knowing how to work um, academically. The goal is to have a defensible thesis statement, evidence, and commentary. That is the ultimate goal. Now, at my tables, I'll have students each one write a defensible thesis statement, and then again, they reach a consensus which one is the best. Should we combine these two ideas together? Should we just take this one? Let's discuss it. Is it defensible? Is it using a subordinating conjunction? Is it interesting? Does it capture the audience's imagination? Or are we just being too easy to interpret? We want a little bit of complexity in this. Okay. So then they have the presentations and then they have to share their findings, name the icons that you use, explain how effective it was in helping the research. So they have this nice chart paper and they've written everything out. They've explained their positions, they've talked to each other. And now we're going to have the philosophical chairs. As I said, I make a whole meal out of the novel, but mostly the kid interaction. They look forward to it. They talk about it after class. They come after school and ask me questions. It's really interesting to see how kids can rise to the occasion when you're putting the onus on them. And this is an example of philosophical chairs. I do show this to students before we get involved in philosophical chairs. Address the ideas, not the person, is really important because kids get into ad hominem and attack each other. So this is a really good lesson for them to learn how to speak. Some adults can learn this. I also have kids that pontificate and they take over everything. The same two kids always talk. So I allow them to give everybody a chance to speak, even the kids that take time and need to process. One speaker at a time. It's a discussion, not a debate. Using So here's my work. I definitely use Bloom's taxonomy when I'm working at things. I try to stay up at the top with create and you know I like students to identify, but I really love create and produce a product. because that way they feel accomplished, and I know that they're working on the higher level of Bloom's taxonomy. I use the College Board AP Language and Composition course and examination description. The TEKS I use somewhat, but since it's AP class, I definitely use those things that students need to know how to do, which is the defensible thesis statement and that commentary they need to support. So that's my Bible of sorts. And the depth and complexity icons were created by Sandra Kaplan. And I have found it to be very effective to help students to think and take over their learning instead of me just telling them what to do at all times. Now, if I was presenting this, I would say, does anyone have any questions? So I'm just going to answer one question. This has been a very successful uh, class for me, and applying rhetoric to a novel like this with such interesting interactions is really awesome. My name is Kalua Lauber, and I thank you for this course and thank you for the opportunity to learn from a different perspective. I have enjoyed it immensely.